Hey guys, welcome to a Tech Control video here. We were actually going to try to do the Apple event live, and I guess Apple has some sort of algorithm that detects whoever is streaming the thing live, and it automatically took our video down. So apologies to those who were looking forward to that. Apologies to those who were already streaming or not streaming, who were viewing live with us, but it is appreciated nonetheless. So I figure instead, we're just going to take a quick look at the Apple website and go over what they went over pretty much in the conference, some of the key features and our initial impressions. And yes, I said our. On the panel right now, you have Mondo from PlaySesh.
Hello, how's it going?
Good, good. And then you also have Podcast Lou.
Podcast Lou. Hey, what's up, guys?
That's his name now? Podcast Lou?
That's his new name now, Podcast Lou. So okay.
I mean, I don't have a swanky YouTube channel, so you have to know me from somewhere.
Yeah, yeah. Listen, anybody who's heard any of our podcasts know that you've been on there uh, consistently since day one. So they'll know your voice right away. Okay. So I am sharing my screen with Mando and Mr. Podcast over here. And then you guys should be able to see it as well. So this is the Apple landing screen. Welcome to the future of Mac. Uh, let's just scroll right down. So before we jump in here, let's talk about what we expected. We pretty much got exactly what we were expecting. They introduced the new M1 chip for some of their MacBooks. True to their word, they said earlier in the year when they had the developer conference that they would show us some new hardware with the new Apple Silicon, and this is it. So, did they mention how small this chip is? I don't think they did.
I don't remember. I don't remember if they mentioned like the size. What I was wondering though right now actually is because like we were talking about earlier during the event, that they were using the same N1 chip for, all the devices that they announced that they would be coming out with.
Right,
I'm
right.
wondering if it's like I mean, I'm guessing it is, right? The same core count and everything, the same specs for across all the devices.
It would appear that way.
Okay.
And then also to answer your question, you were asking about if they were going to use a dedicated GPU from either AMD or Intel or things like that.
Mm.
I think recently they moved away from Intel and they started using AMD. But it looks like now with the new M1 chip, um, it's all integrated, all Apple, no more AMD, no more Intel. So
Well, they I think they had always used AMD cards for their graphics, like the ones that did come with graphics. Actually, maybe for the like for the laptops, they used some NVIDIA cards.
no,
I
for
don't know
the
what they did.
laptops it was Intel.
But
Again, unless you
just the integrated graphics for Intel.
right, it was the integrated for Intel. Unless
Okay.
you upgraded to a third party, which would be AMD or I don't think they ever used NVIDIA, but I could be wrong
Yeah.
on that.
Doesn't Apple have beef with NVIDIA? I think I remember hearing that like a while ago.
Well, you can add Intel to that list.
No, I know, but I feel
I
like
mean,
they had more beef with NVIDIA. I think. I don't know. Maybe I'm just thinking about other things. I don't know.
Go
let
ahead,
me
Lou. You were
see.
gonna say something.
No, I was just looking up da, 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 currency.
All
Okay.
right. While you
I was
look
just
that
looking
up,
up this.
let me just let
Yeah,
me
go
just
ahead.
go over a few of the key things that they touched up on the conference. So the M1 chip, I'm assuming is for Mac, right? That one's pretty obvious. Usually their chips, the letter starts with whatever it is for the product, like the iPad chips. They all start with A, but I think that was initially because they started with the iPad Air. Um, what else? The watch, those are W chips. I think now they have H. Who knows? But either way, M1 chip probably for Mac. Big Sur is a big one. That's coming this Thursday, And these new MacBooks that they talked about with the new M1 chip coming out, you can actually pre-order them today, and they'll be available. I think they said next week, if I'm not mistaken.
The products?
Yeah.
Yeah. You can pre-order. Yeah, you can pre-order them today, and they'll be available next week.
Yeah, right.
I guess they'll ship next week, or
No. If I just scroll down a little bit, it's 11/17. That's when they're available.
okay.
Yeah, I
So
believe that
again,
is next week.
right. So real quick, they started with the MacBook Air. Again, this is very impressive what they're doing in such a small, compact space. They got rid of the fan. That honestly is pretty cool, but at the same time, we've had that on iPads, so it's really not that surprising. Still impressive. I'm not gonna take anything away from them.
It's
What
surprising for a computer. I mean, because
It
it's
is.
like, I mean, it's not running iPad OS. It's running Mac OS, and it's
Right.
like it's running the full Mac OS, and apparently with higher performance than the processors that they've had before. So pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Without fans, like apparently it doesn't. You don't have to worry about like the thermals getting crazy. So yeah,
No,
pretty
I
impressive.
again, I don't want to take this away from them. I give them full credit. I'm just saying we've seen it. That's all.
Yeah.
Okay, what else? MacBook Pro 13-inch. They specified 13-inch. So does that mean that is the M1 chip going to be available on the 15-inch? Probably not. We're probably still going to have the same 15-inch MacBook Pro from last year. Um, there were rumors about a slightly bigger bezel, a 16-inch, I think they said, or maybe even a 17-inch. Just from the bezel perspective, you get rid of the bezels, you increase the screen, and then you get a bigger size. We didn't get that yet. I want to say yet because again, they only went over the 13 inches, and this is only the first iteration of the M1 chip. So maybe by the time the M2 chip comes around next year, we'll start to see more models adopt that and implement it. So scrolling down real quick, they did go over the Mac Mini. That's another one that was pretty impressive. It does have a fan as well as the MacBook Pro. So, and then some of the other stuff that they talked about, the M1 chip is it has better performance all around. It's 8 cores with multi-threading, so 16 in a way, and then you also have machine learning is the best it's ever been on this chip with the neural engine and all that. So, uh, you know, overall, I gotta say I was pretty impressed with this chip.
Yeah, see,
What about
they with the chip, it makes even the iPad, not the iPad, the Mac Mini, a pretty powerful computer. Um,
right?
so it's yeah, I mean, like I had mentioned to you before about it, possibly being on par with their current iMacs. Um,
It
I
could
mean,
be.
I don't know. We'll
It
see
could
like
be
when they come out and like when people do tests,
benchmarks. Yeah.
comparing. Yeah,
So the only downside to that is that because now they're using the Apple Silicon instead of Intel, all the programs got to get reprogrammed or ported over and things like that, so
yeah,
that they can run on this new processor. So that may take some time. It's not going to be instant. Uh, and that's honestly part of the reason why I decided to get my iMac this year and not wait for the redesign next year, because I want all my programs to run now, and
yeah,
I don't want to have to wait in case the program isn't ready, But to give them credit, most of the programs, the big ones, Final Cut, um, um, Photoshop, things like that, most of those, I mean, they said DaVinci, a lot of these programs are already optimized to take advantage of the new M1 chip, which is
It kind of
great.
reminds me of when Microsoft last year came out with that new Surface, like what was it, the Surface X or whatever, that had
yeah,
the ARM chip instead of like the regular Intel chip.
Right,
Because
right,
even though it was like kind of better, but at the same time, because of it was like in a mobile chip, not everything worked like the regular Surface Pros was working. And then you have basically had to wait for like the programs to adapt to that chip.
right.
Yeah, I was just about to say earlier, it worked out so well for Microsoft.
That's true.
But I think the good thing is that like like Jay said, like a lot of the like these big profile, apps are already running some sort of, optimized versions for, like, for example, the iPad. So it's like I feel like it'd take less work for them to shift, using, those same kind of processes for shifting over to an ARM-based Mac computer. So it might be easier for them to make that shift than, for someone like on, the Microsoft side where they don't really have reference for that as far as just like having worked with that kind of setup before.
So just real quick, you remember we were asking about the size? It's a 5 nanometer, and that is
Oof.
super impressive. That's just man, Intel has to be super PO'd right now. But at the same time, when you look at what Apple's able to do with a 5 nanometer processor, outperforming Intel, at the same time, Intel has to tip their hat to Apple and take the L like professionals. They deserve it.
I don't know. I don't know if that's happening, but
Oh no, no,
um,
it's definitely not. I'm saying they should.
they already mad at AMD. Like,
Oh, geez, forget about it. Intel, you know what? That's another time. I'm curious to see what their stock was about 2 hours ago and what it will be by the end of the day. So, anyway, I have here the page for the M1 stuff. So let's just quickly go over it while we're here. We did say that it does have the integrated GPU, along with the Neural engine and all that stuff. The usual Apple Silicon stuff. 3.9 times faster for video processing, image processing 7 times. That's all. This is very impressive. Uh, 8 core, 3.5 times the performance as previous um, Intel chips. Man, I feel like we're just kicking Intel while they're down. Um, and then
yeah,
right over here you can see that with less power, it's actually able to outperform the latest Intel chips, or I don't. It doesn't specifically say Intel here, but I'm just gonna say it for them.
I mean that's already, like I said, that's already what AMD is doing. But like the
Right, right,
because like AMD is also like they didn't increase their power output, right, for their new CPUs, but they have like an uptick in performance in the double digit percentage with the same power usage. But like
right, right.
the previous chips that the Macs were using were the Intel chips, and now it's like you kind of see like the performance improvement by them just switching to like making their own chips. I mean, I think we've have they when did they start making their own chips for the iPhone and the iPad and stuff?
The Oh, you're testing my memory. I think the iPad was 2012 or 2013. I can't remember the iPhone. I think they always had their own for the iPhone.
Oh, well, I mean, what I'm getting at essentially is just that, they've shown before how much they can improve performance by just like in housing,
Right,
their processes and just like making stuff themselves. So
right.
I don't think this is going to be any different in that regard. And we kind of already see like some of the stuff that they're going to be improving on, which is just like the amount of heat coming off of these laptops is less than what you would have with like other chips because they don't even have fans, which is crazy.
Yeah, that is crazy. So just going back to what you were saying about the power wattage, I mean, it makes sense. It's a smaller chip.
Yeah.
So, you have a 14 nanometer chip with Intel. I think it's 14 or 12, that they're using. And it's a bigger chip. It's going to consume more power. So that makes sense. I'm just impressed that they're able to do it with a 5 nanometer. I really expected maybe a 7, working on 5. But I think that, did they beat AMD to a 5 nanometer chip?
Yep.
Yeah, they
Because
did, right?
Andy said they're working on a
Right, right.
five
They're
five.
on a 5. This is their
Yeah.
second iteration of the 7 nanometer. So look at that. That's pretty impressive right there. Apple beat two companies that are dedicated to processing. Although I'll give AMD also has their GPUs. Anyway, either way, it's still very impressive. Um,
I mean, Apple
the,
has all the money in the world to just throw at that. So
they do have a lot of money. No, but either way, I'm glad to see that they're putting it to use. Not like they're not creating useless programs and throwing money away like Google Stadia. So 15 times faster machine learning. That's the stuff I mentioned earlier. And it shows in the battery life. We're essentially getting an extra 10 hours on both the Air and the Pro 13.
Yeah, the battery life is pretty crazy for these laptops.
Yeah, it's very impressive. They also went over some of the dev tools that are used to port applications over from Intel to the new Apple Silicon. So that's what that is going over. And then that's pretty much it. These are the three machines that they announced. Let's
Well,
take a quick look.
you also the part about the using the iPhone apps too on the Mac.
Right,
Was
right, right. So go ahead,
pretty
if you
impressive
want
as
to
well.
just quickly elaborate on that, what I just look at prices.
Yeah, I mean, I think it goes back to like what we were talking about earlier about them just having already had, this process on other devices. It's just easier to get those apps that were already working on those devices to also work on the new Macs since, they're going to be running their own ARM chips as well. I mean, what they mentioned during the presentation was that you'd be able to like use, iPhone apps on Mac OS essentially. Like
Right,
that native iPhone experience, I guess, on
right.
the Mac OS.
I agree 100%. So I was able to pull up here the three different models that they just talked about today that are going to use the M1 chip. And it looks like that it's the same chip across the board. So you have actually, I take that back. The same CPU power across the board, but the GPU power does vary because you can see right off the bat here that this is what the Air. Yeah, this MacBook Air, the first iteration has 7 cores for the GPU. The next one has 8. Slight difference, but could it could be the difference between 30%, to 40 or something like that, and that does add up over time. Starting at 1,000, I'll leave this here. I mean, you guys can see the prices for yourself right here. Moving over to the MacBook Pro, as I mentioned, only the 13 got the update. That's why you don't see the word new above the 16. So just briefly looking at the 13, everything is pretty much the same here as it was before. That's interesting. And then if we go over to the Mac Mini, the Mac Mini might be the best bang for your buck, unless you talk about storage. But either way, $699 starting right off the bat. That's really not bad at all. Again, for those of you that are going to go on Apple's website, if you're looking at any of this, please make sure that you're looking at the ones that say new if you're interested in the new M1 chip, because if they don't say new, you're going to be stuck with the previous Intel processor, which again, not a bad thing. It just depends on your needs. So that was just a quick overview. Any final thoughts before we close this? This kind of turned out to be similar to a podcast, but it's really just an overview of the event.
well, when you have podcast Lou, that's what happens.
Podcast Lou, baby.
No, I mean, I think the event was interesting. I think this is probably going to have a bigger impact on their like whole computer department further down the line, and like the industry in general. Because I feel like, for better or worse, a lot of the times companies look to Apple to see like what to do or like what the next thing they should innovate on is. Sometimes it's the other way around, but in this case, it's it's that way. But like, I mean, we already see Microsoft doing that with their Surface X, Surface Pro X,
Something
Surface
like
Pro.
that, yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. it didn't exactly work out as well as they had hoped for them, but like it's already kind of taking a turn in that direction. So with this, I feel like it's just gonna like enable that even more. And especially like now that companies see that, you know, Apple's moving to ARM, so they have more of a reason to focus on like developing their apps on that platform and stuff. So it's just gonna like incentivize developers more to create for that. And I mean, eventually it'll be good for everyone, but you know, it usually takes Apple to do it before everyone else gives it the importance that it deserves.
Um, Closing remarks.
No, I
Everything,
mean,
everything podcast Lou said.
yeah, podcast Lou knows where it's at, so
Yeah. No, no,
I agree
he
with what
hit
he
it.
said.
It was pretty spot on. And same here. Overall, I was impressed with the conference. And even more now that I found that it's a 5 nanometer. It seems like they're ahead of the previous manufacturers that they were using. So having everything in house that potentially could also reduce costs. I don't necessarily think that we, the consumers, are going to see that, but as long as they don't continue to increase prices, I guess it's a win there. But overall, like I said, I'm very happy with the conference. I like the direction that they're going, and let's see what else the future holds. So once
Do you
again,
guys feel like? Oh, sorry.
no, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
I was just gonna ask, like, do you guys feel like what kind of impact do you guys feel like this is gonna have on just like
Uh,
computing in general? Like, is it? It's. I mean, we were talking about earlier during the stream, like just the whole their whole ecosystem setup, and you know now with their in-house computer chips, it's just taking that to a whole new level.
it's true. Honestly, I think we're about to see the beginning of the end of Intel. I don't
Ah,
necessarily.
okay.
It's a
That's a
bold
bold
statement.
statement.
It is bold, but everyone is leaping them. So if they don't completely disappear, then they're gonna have to find their market maybe in a budget area or something like that, at least for them to stay relevant.
I mean, I think to a certain degree, I think I do agree with you. Because there have been certain things that they've been lagging behind on, and it doesn't seem like they've made big enough strides to innovate in those areas as they should have. And hopefully, all these companies doing these innovative things might incentivize them to do that. But it's just like if you don't change and innovate with everyone else, that's kind of like you said, leapfrogging you, then you're kind of gonna get left behind. I obviously don't think they want that to happen, so they're gonna have to
Right.
either get with the program or just get left behind,
Yeah,
essentially.
How
they're
ironic.
gonna.
How ironic that Intel is becoming the Apple of CPUs. Because isn't that what people usually rag on Apple for, that they don't really innovate and stuff? Because usually when it like phones wise anyway, like
Well,
they
can you
like get
really?
stuff for like that has been available on Android like years later and stuff like that.
Can you still say that? After watching this, after to this conference, I don't know.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm
Yeah,
saying. That's why I said that it's ironic because that's how Apple was known before. But I feel like maybe they're like getting it together and like, maybe they're trying different things now to like, try to somewhat innovate and still be relevant.
yeah. Well, let's see. Let's see. You know what's going to be interesting is that not Intel, Nvidia. Who did they just buy? Wasn't it ARM?
Yeah, ARM.
So right, right. It's possible that Nvidia could also be getting into the CPU game. Sort of like what AMD has, where they have both. Things are going to be interesting in the future. So
Yeah,
we're
I mean,
definitely going
even
to keep an
Intel
eye
is
on
getting
those.
into dedicated graphics cards now, so that's like everybody's trying to dip their foot in someone else's pool.
Pretty much. Listen, if you're Intel or Nvidia, you kind of have to because you don't want to get left behind. And we're already
Yeah.
seeing it with Intel. So, okay. Again, this was a quick recap. So thank you again, those of you that were there. Sorry for the issues that we had. I did end up having to delete the video from the channel. So we'll see what's going to happen with future live streams. I don't know if it's just Apple because we did the AMD one recently with no issues at all. So I guess
I'm
we'll
pretty sure it
see.
was Apple.
It might have been. But we'll see from here to the next event. Stay tuned for more. Subscribe below, share with a buddy or two, and comment. Let us know your thoughts, what you thought about the Apple event. I'm genuinely curious. All right, take care, guys.